Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and as part of today's episode of Scoreboard, I'm joined by Zac Stubblety-Cook. Thank you so much for coming in to Brisbane here and being in person. It's a bit of a rarity for you.
Yeah, not normally in Brizzy, but this week here for Open Championships. I'm not racing this week, sadly, but Gold Coast resident based now. So for me, yeah, it's a rarity to be in Brisbane, but it's nice to be here in person.
Now, we're sitting here on the 23rd of April, a Wednesday afternoon. What does an Olympic gold medal swimmer do on a Wednesday in April?
Wednesday, April. So, yeah, normally be racing this time of year because it's normally national champs, but just training at the moment. So for me, I got to the pool at 6:15 this morning and then lifted weights until about 7:30, and then in the water from 7:30 until about 10 o'clock this morning, and then had a few other bits and pieces on today, like a lunch with my grandma, and then, now here. So
there you go. And your week is completely tied up with training at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm trying to train in and around the competition time and obviously give the coach the priority of those athletes competing. So for me, that's, a bit difficult training 7:30 in the morning till about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then back to the pool by 2 o'clock. So it's all a bit of a balance at the moment, but it's been a good week so far and a good 3 weeks. We've had post-altitude training. So, yeah, it's been a good period of time.
And Zac, how much of a swimming training is in the pool versus out of the pool?
At the moment, we'd be doing 50 to 60K a week, and then 3 gym sessions on top of that, about an hour long each. So, and then a couple of bike sessions as well, and then a few other bits and bobs in terms of recovery. So, actual training load's probably 24 to 28 hours a week in contact hours, and then outside of that, you're probably spending another 5 to 6 hours in recovery, whether that's ice bath, massage, or physio, as well as seeing nutritionists and all those kind of other bits and bobs that kind of just feed in. So for me, yeah, it's definitely a full-time gig. And
life as an athlete, do you love it? Do you still love swimming?
Yeah, I mean, I really love, I guess, the grind. I love the pursuit of perfection is my big thing, and for me, that's always been the drive. And it definitely has its moments where, the start of this year, brand new program, a lot of change, was definitely challenging, I'd say, in that piece. But now it's a bit more, I guess, I'm finding that groove again of the chase and the drive, which is nice.
I've talked a lot about perfectionism with other athletes, and it's a very interesting conversation about maybe, beating yourself up or getting upset around not giving it your best or something went wrong, etc. How do you cope with that?
I think in the beginning you think perfection's attainable. And I think then as you get at a more senior level or more mature, you realise perfection is unattainable, but if you land somewhere close, it's bloody cool.
That's a good answer. And you say as you get older, you're sitting here in 26, and that's not old, by the way, but it's probably old in swimming. I don't know, maybe it's old in swimming as well. I don't know. I mean, you've been on the circuit for 8 years.
Yeah, nearly 8 years. So, I think part of my motivation now is probably to try and make the team for 10 years. So 10-year anniversary would be LA, so it'd be a nice place to also finish. Being 29, kind of full circle moment. So I think a decade of being at that level is something pretty cool and something that not a lot of people achieve. So that's kind of what's driving me at the moment, and to get back to where I have been before. That's what's the drive at the moment. But yeah, I have gotten older, I guess. The other day, a little anecdotal story, but we head off to Dubai on the weekend for a training camp, and we were racing over there, and everyone had to put in their birth dates into our squad group chat, and I put mine in, and every single squad member just reacted to it, being oh god,
the grandfather.
Yeah, I was the only 1990, and everyone else was 2004, 2007.
Oh, right.
One of the
2007.
I was
that's right.
Cool.
You start getting old when you're in your 40s, and then you realise some of the kids are playing professional sport that you used to play with the parents or against the parents or something. You're like, oh my goodness, that child is 17 and playing for Queensland cricket or something. Like I used to play with the dad. Zac, going back to, you mentioned the Gold Coast where you're from, going back to that first Commonwealth Games in 2018, do you remember it clearly? And looking at Zac then versus Zac now, how have things changed?
Yeah, a lot. Mentally, physically changed a lot. Like obviously physically probably pretty underdeveloped. Very fit athlete, very hungry athlete at that point in time. But for me, mentally probably just wasn't quite mature enough to take the opportunities when they came. 2018 was probably like one of the meets. It was my first international team, fresh 18 or 19 at the time. And I was very much like wanted it, but didn't know what it took at an international meet. Like understood what it took to get onto the team, but didn't necessarily understand then that was only step one, I guess. And I had a pretty poor performance, I would say, at Commonwealth Games, like PB+5, missing a final when I really should have probably been pretty close to the podium, if not on the podium at that meet. And being in front of a home crowd, it probably hurt that much more. I think, family and a lot of friends and a lot of people then in that grandstand, and arguably I probably won't get another chance to do that in front of a home crowd. It was like the only chance I had. So for me, that's always kind of been a point in my career where it was like a real big learning curve and a real good learning curve that taught me a lot of lessons on how to be better and how to perform at those major meets.
I'm always curious to know when people get selected for something which is their dream. Let's say they get selected to play cricket for Australia, or they get play in the NBA, or they get selected for the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic. But the moment of euphoria, it's sort of, tick, 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 pause and reflect, but that's just the start, right? The actual event to lift yourself up. Through those moments in time, do you remember them clearly of, selection, but now it's time to get going?
Yeah, to a degree. I think you're selected, obviously, at that time it was still 8 to 10 weeks before the games or before the major meet. And in that year it was a little bit different. So it'll look very similar next year when there's 2 major meets on. But that year was, I'd come off World Junior Championships, kind of returned pretty fit, and then was ready and hungry because I knew that was the next step. And all I was focused on was getting on that team, and then getting on that team kind of was I guess a relief, but then almost too much of a relax. But then I think then you learn later on that it's more about then okay, that's just phase one, and then I need to, if I want to be better, I need to get better and learn how to reset really, really quickly, and even quicker and quicker now because we're 5 weeks turnaround, typically from the end of a meet to the start of the new one, which is, I think, it's good enough at the moment. I think it's hard to double peak a lot of the time, but in terms of from a mental component, it's so much easier than fully resetting and fully going again. I think 16 weeks or 4 months kind of sometimes scares the shit out of people to be oh my God, that's a long run in again. It gives you a lot of opportunity to do it, but a lot can change in 4 months versus 5 weeks. You kind of bubble wraps on, let's go.
Yes, yeah. No, absolutely. And I think even to comparing it to cricket to a little bit, the 2020, there's 12 or 13 games. There's 2 days between games. You keep rhythm, you get out, that's okay. Whereas swim races obviously is a lot bigger. I'm curious to know breaststroke, firstly, where did that come from? And secondly, the 200, when did you find your element and when did you think you're pretty good?
Really, I guess the running joke in swimming is breaststrokers are born, not really made. Often we're the weird flexible hips and knees, those kids that always have drop-in knees and turned out ankles. That's what breaststroke is good. What makes a good breaststroker is typically not a good on land. So for me, at a very young age, I realized I liked, I guess, the social aspect of swimming, and that's what got me into it. And then I ended up swimming everything and anything when I was quite young, and then kind of breaststroke just got more and more poignant, I guess, and got better and better at it. I guess be similar to cricket where you know when you're young bat your bowl.
Pick up a bat and this is or bowl, and you're given a go at everything, and you're like, this is actually pretty good. This wicket keeping thing, you know.
Yeah, and then like as you progress, you kind of realize, okay, batting's my thing or bowling's my thing, and really dial into that. So I think that's probably how I got into that, and like I raced 200 medley up until I was like reasonably competitively up until I was like 16, 17, and then kind of let it drop back and focus more on breaststroke. And then I'm not the tallest, I'm not the strongest guy out there for the 100. So for me, the 100 is, I guess, a fun event and I love it, but it's just not what my physiology is suited to. My physiology is suited to 200, even probably a little bit longer. If there was a race that was a bit longer.
The 300.
Yeah, 300 or 400 would be nice, but that 200 is obviously where it's at. And like for me, getting the most out of that 200 has been nice because as well, like I find the 100 2 laps a little bit, I guess, and I'm biased because I love the two breasts and I like 200 meter races that use a lot of nuance in a single form stroke 200 where you can make moves, where you can pull back, kind of like, I guess in the last 5 years of 200 breaststroke, like everybody's raced it differently, and like the history of the race where they used to take it out in 60 point, and now we're kind of only just getting back to going out in 60 point, but no one used to come back in 65, which I know is probably like very detailed for the listeners, but like I guess the history of how it's like progressed and then people still trying to do it a different way is like kind of why I also love the 200, because like, you know, in Tokyo I had the guy next to me, Arno, go out like a gun and go 60 point. It was PB plus 1.5 for his 100 pace and then kind of die, but that was his tactic to try and just get in front and stay in front. And then you have guys like me who kind of like sit back with the pack and then go like a little bit later in the race. And so I think that's why I also like the 200, because it's like it's mentally a little bit challenging to keep composed, but also enjoyable because when it pulls off, it pulls off. Like it's a 200 always hurts regardless of whether you race it slow or fast, which just sucks about it, but that's just part of it.
And the signature finish for you, when did that sort of come about? A little bit left in the tank and put the foot down.
I mean, like, I think...
Put the foot down is when you're running, I suppose. What do you call it when you're swimming with 50 to go?
I mean, similar. I think it's like just giving it everything you got in that last 50. For me, like, I think growing up, I think I did it, but like, I didn't realize I was doing that until like later on when someone handed me a A3 page of like, these are all the splits you've ever done, or like basically like your top 3 times from when you were 10 to when you were 23 at the time, every year from like, so, you know, a whole A and every split. And it was like, how long did this take you to work out? But I was like, okay, whatever. Anyway, you know, so like I could see that consistently that last 50 was actually like quite competitive through all the way through my like swimming. So
what's the data say with your last 50? If you put it to double it to 100, what does that give you in time?
A lot. Like, I guess, so the last 50, to put it in perspective, when I broke the world record in 2022, would be competitive for a 100 meter back end. So,
yeah.
So guys,
it just takes you a little while. No, I wouldn't say a little while to get going. It's more like it's tactical, right?
A little bit, I think, like a bit of both, maybe a mix of both.
A mix of both. Let's go back to 2021 and Tokyo and the lead up to that and all the things that went. Now, do people still reference it at 2020 as the gold medal?
I mean, like the medals and all the merch says 2020 still.
Yeah.
So, but like, yeah, you have to kind of remind yourself that there was only 3 years between Tokyo to Paris. Yeah, so
the build-up was not normal for you personally and or for anyone. No. But do you want to give the listeners a bit of an insight as to the hiccups along the way?
I mean, like, to give everyone context, I guess, like, we were training like it was going to happen in 2020. So we were like, you know, fit as off the back of world champs where I was 4th in 2019. And then, you know, we were preparing, and I think it was like, I don't remember what month it was, but I can distinctly remember when kind of the first kind of lockdown happened.
It's March, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was around March. And like, we were about to go on an altitude training camp to America like that week. So that got pulled up quite quickly, and very fortunately, to be honest. Like, I think if that happened, we might still be there.
Yeah. It was a bit like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You take a trip and you're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get back.
Yeah, and like the 2-week quarantine that you had to do come home
back and then get tested during the 2-week period and then go, oh, well, it's another 2 weeks because you tested positive on day 10.
Yeah, and even to get a plane ticket, people were booking like business and first class flights just so they could guarantee a seat on the plane because the airlines weren't flying unless it was commercially viable still, because no one was moving, no one was traveling. But anyway, I digress. That much.
It's all right. We like to digress on Scoreboard.
That month, I can distinctly remember training in the morning at Chandler, where I was training at the time. And that morning, I remember training there and the pool closing while we were in the pool. And so, we're inside the pool, like all the public get kicked out, and we're just like, okay. And they're like, oh, you guys can stay until the end of this session, but the pool will be closed as of this afternoon. And we're like, okay, this is strange. And our coach at the time, Vince, was like adamant that like we would be able to train that afternoon. So he was like, guys, like this is just going to be a overnight thing or like a day thing. Like people are going to overreact and no one's actually going to, listen to those mandates. And, we ended up, I remember then going to Centenary Pool just up the road from here and swimming there, and then like getting out of the pool and having an email and a couple of missed calls and being like, the email was from Swimming Australia, and it was like at the time Scott Morrison had like stopped or said that they wouldn't send an Australian team to the Olympics. And this is before the Olympics.
It was like no matter what.
Yeah, because of the pandemic, we wouldn't be headed to the games. And this is right before, I guess, the games was postponed. So it was kind of, I'd imagine it was in the works in the background, and a lot of countries already kind of knew, and the whispers were kind of that it may get postponed. And then it kind of like all that week, we didn't have somewhere to train. We were like working out what was what, but it was just like, went for a 20-minute swim and the whole world and had just
it's
like
someone's a mate's backyard pool.
Well, that was like at Centenary and getting out of that pool, and it was just like all this had just happened, and we're just like, what the fuck's going on? And then we're lucky that I had mates and family that had backyard pools at the time, and was able to get a lot of gym equipment and all those kind of bits really quickly, and then was able to kind of train differently, very, very different looking training, which was like, 2 hours on a watt bike first thing in the morning, and then kind of circuits or gym session in the afternoon. And that was like, we were lucky here in Queensland, that was only like 6-8 week period,
Victoria not like Victoria, which is 176 months.
Yeah, 6 months, 16 weeks of that. So,
but the like training for what though? What were you doing?
I mean, like at that point, it was kind of like still full denial because we didn't really know the games had been postponed. It was kind of just like they'll probably happen next year, but like not sure because it's like.
But just in case.
Yeah, it was almost like you'd rather be prepared than not. That was kind of the mentality at that point.
And I've got an 8 meter pool that I'm practicing in.
Yeah, so it was just like pool wise, it was more feel. It was nothing about fitness. It was just like sculling in the bathtub kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, it was just about feel, I guess. And then when we could train, it would be very, very different stimulus, but still in that aerobic capacity. And I think a lot of us like came back reasonably fit, to be fair. But I think in a way, I've been lucky that I also then had another, year of physical development at a young age, like young 20-year-old at the time, that actually probably helped me. In a way, like it was a blessing.
What, did you go up a couple of inches, you reckon?
No, not height, but probably
strength.
Just strength and maturity, and it gave time to probably step back and reflect on what I wanted out of the next 12 months. Because for me, like the mantra then became, once we found out that the Olympics were postponed, it was like, I want to swim my best race in the Olympic final. And like that was kind of, we worked back from that. So how do we get on the team? How do we then get to the final, heat, semi and final.
Yep.
And then because we had that mantra and goal, by the time we got to the final, it was almost a celebration that we were just there. And like that was almost in the back of my mind was good and not good enough, but like I guess I was content within myself regardless of then the result after that.
And you'd finished fourth in the world, you mentioned, in 19. So you had an understanding that you in the final, potentially in your head, in the top 8, is it? Yep. And then to get there, to make the final, it was like, okay, I've done everything possible to get to this final. I've given, it's been a wild few years and I've given it, now I'm here, and you're getting on there, you're just going out there and you're going, right, let's give it everything and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
And you did.
Yeah.
And you won gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was going through your head? Were you just, like, I remember seeing the footage when you touched the wall, you turned immediately left to see there was a couple of races close to you, but you didn't turn right. There's also a couple of races close to you. Did you know you'd won?
Not until I like turned around and saw the scoreboard, and then it was like, for better or worse, the first feeling is like relief because it's like over, because like kind of the race is over and all that pressure pot is done. But then B, it's also like all the training building up to that is then like justified. And like, I guess, you don't realize until afterwards like what that pressure inside you was and what that drive and hunger was going towards until you get to that point. So for me, like that was, I guess, the interesting piece of like, it wasn't necessarily like the first feeling wasn't elation and happiness. It was like, oh, I can breathe now. And I guess then it was like just like a whirlwind of happiness and emotion of like, a lot of it can be described as like, what the fuck just happened kind of thing. And I guess like I was very lucky that I guess like it was disappointing that I guess family weren't there, but in a way I guess nice that also the people that train with you day in, day out and were there with you day in, day out were like front and center right there. And it felt really, I guess, pure in those moments that you were very still and like confident within yourself and believing in yourself that that's what the result could be. And like, I think like some of my favorite memories are like probably the half an hour after that, like going and seeing my coach and then going and seeing like all like the Aussies and my mates on the team in the stands. Like those are memories I'll never forget. And then the medal presentation and watching the Aussie flag go up was like, it's just like whirlwind of emotion, all that. And like, I don't think it really hits you until you stand on the podium and watch the flag go up. Like you're kind of like, oh, I won a swimming race. I'm really good at not drowning, but like, and then you kind of get there and you're like, oh, this means more than just like, And I would say it's like also you start to like, and this is probably like a bit further down the line, but like the 2 weeks quarantine after were probably like the best 2 weeks because you actually got to process it and like sit with it without anyone else kind of interfering with what your perception of it is. And for me, like I kind of came to the conclusion it was not like just my medal, but it's like, family, it's friends, it's coaches, it's all the support that got me to that point. That's what that medal represents to me. And it's like the community around me that was allowed me to perform. That's what that medal means, not the other way around where it's like, oh, it's an individual pursuit. It's still like an individual sport and it's between me and me when I get on the block, but the amount of people that have to impact me to get me there is, like we work with a physio at the time. It was like physio, massage, nutrition, biomech, physiologist, a coach, an assistant coach. And that's 7 people around me. And then like when you're on team, you then have like other coaches, other physiologists involved, and then you're also bringing sometimes externals in. So for example, we had another external kind of like consultant who was helping with training. like, yeah. And then like, that's before you even start talking about training partners and before you even start talking about like all the people that you raced growing up to even get you to be competitive on an international level, let alone then like competing for gold. So for me, it's like, that's what it is. It's not one, like, yeah, that's kind of like where you end up, or where I ended up landing with what it meant and the emotion behind it.
And retrospectively, as you've got older and you've competed in other Olympics, we'll get to that as well, but how much does that gold medal mean now, later on in life as well?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I think like the way Mel Marshall, my new coach, described it as like you were unconsciously competent in Tokyo, and like I couldn't have put it better. I didn't even realize, and I was like, oh, fuck, you already like have me figured out before like we've even worked together for that long. And then she's like, you then in Paris became consciously competent, but didn't know where and how. Like you became consciously competent, but then like that was overwhelming, and that became something. And I was like, fuck, you hit the nail on the head, but like I didn't necessarily know how to verbalize that. So for me, like what the difference is, I guess, or like how it's progressed is like Tokyo, I would describe as the campaign was like naive in nature in terms of from a mental point of view, because you didn't know how big the event was going to be, because you never experienced anything like it. You can build up in your head and all that, but like till you actually get there and experience what it's like, and then the come down off the games, it's like you can't really describe to someone. And then like you go into your second games and you almost like, I guess the mentality a little bit becomes like, fuck, I don't want to miss out, because you know how cool and fun and how much of a highlight that experience is. And then you kind of go back again and strip that back again to even more, I guess, top line is like, I just don't want to miss out on the opportunity to get there again, or the opportunity to be the best again. It's like, that's probably how you then shift that, how that shifts that perspective.
Just touching on that, the two different contrasts of the Olympics, and you mentioned around, what was it, unconsciously competent versus going to Paris with just the noise and the hometown favourite in your race versus Tokyo. Like, you know, no one in their right mind would have not felt the immense pressure, I suppose, versus a quietish stadium versus packed out. How did you cope with the noise?
I enjoyed it because I think, like, for me, it was a big achievement just to get back into that race again, given the 18 months I'd had beforehand. Like, so for me, I was like stoked even just to be there. The
same feeling, you reckon, in Tokyo to make the final?
Different, I guess, because I'd had probably more of a bumpy run, and like, because like, I guess into Tokyo, it was reasonably smooth, and
apart from the delay in games by a year. But
apart from like delayed in games and like one little injury a couple of weeks before, it wasn't like a lot of bumps, I guess. And that this is what I mean by like naive, because even now, like me saying that is like, I was naive in that it didn't bother me because I knew that, well, I didn't know that like potentially those 18 months before were more important than the 3 weeks. So for me, like then into Paris was like, you know, kept having bumps and like felt like I got momentum, and then like something would niggle or something would come up where it was like pull back, and then I'd go again, and then it would do the same thing, and it felt very vicious cycle. And mentally I was a bit frustrated and trying to control probably too much. And then I guess we probably looked at that and like, oh, well, now that we've found these issues, it's like almost too close to the games, let's just patch it up to like, you know, fully unpack and fully evolve from those, I guess, little bits. So I guess that's probably the difference in like the knowledge that, for better or worse, that like, you know, the 12 months and even the 12 months before that are probably the most important into a games, because it's like that's where the bulk of the work is done. And then the year of the games is about racing, getting practice, mentally fit rather than physically trying to change a lot. Because you can't change that much in the sport of swimming, especially when you're trying to be at that like very top level. You're not changing things dramatically. You're trying to look for a 0.1 or a 0.3 in, various aspects, and that might take 3 months to change. And you might have one opportunity in those 3 months to actually see whether it's changing, and if it's not, then you're like, fuck. And then it just
back to square one.
Yeah, pretty much. So you're just like constantly, I guess, at that battle, and that's why.
In between those two Olympics, you don't talk about perfectionism, but you did break the world record.
Yeah.
And you did obviously shave off a little bit of time doing something right to break the world record. What did you do right in that event?
I think 2020, the back off, I guess, the other piece that Tokyo gave me was freedom, I guess.
That you were the gold medalist.
Yeah, that no one could ever take that away from you, right? So for me, and I know it somewhat sounds arrogant, I guess, and Aussies aren't too, everyone loves the chop the tall poppy, but I guess you realize that you're a gold medalist, and that's all I ever more than I ever dreamed of. And for me, getting that and achieving that, then my nutritionist at the time, she said to me, she's like, well, as weird as it sounds, what more is there to do for you? And for me, it was I was like, oh fuck, that's a bit of a harsh reality, but a really good one, that she was like, well, you can do whatever you want now. You can race how you want to, because no one can ever take that away from you. And it's not arrogance in that sense. It's more just well, I've achieved that and done that, and then kind of gave me the freedom to race really freely again. So I guess that's the only, and then 2022, I really felt free when I raced, especially at trials, because I'd already actually made the team at the time. So, because I'd pre-qualified from the year before. So I was really confident and excited to race again, and excited to see where I was at. And yeah, I knew I was really fit and able to.
It makes sense though. You've won the gold medal at the Olympics, and you're the world champion, and you're like, well, okay, what next?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll just go out and swim.
Yeah.
And you just did. You swam at the Nationals that you broke the world record.
Trials, yeah. So 5 weeks before World Championships. So if I'd done it 5 weeks later, I'd be, 70 grand richer. But
right.
Yeah, I know. It's that's the harsh reality. I remember being asked that question in a press conference. I was like, are you going to give me the money? Why would you even ask that?
And the difference between 205.95 and 206, whatever the race one, was 70 grand. Yeah.
70. Yeah. So, yeah. So for me, I guess the training at that point in time was I was enjoying it, enjoying swimming, enjoying where I was at in the pool. And that 12 months, it was 12 months to the day to when I won Commonwealth gold. So from Tokyo.
From Tokyo, yeah. So the games are just intertwining. It's kind of 21, 22, 20.
Yeah, that 12
24.
months was the craziest 12 months of my life. And I was the first male since Thorpe or Hackey. I can't remember which. I think it's Thorpe. I think it's Hackey, sorry, to hold a world record, Olympic gold, world championship, and Commonwealth gold in the same event at the same time. And I was did it in 12 months, and he did it in 2 years. So for me, that was a pretty cool achievement to go come full circle, because the hardest one for me was actually Commonwealth Games, because of such the poor experience 4 years before that, the 2018, to be I was probably the most nervous I was that whole year, to be holy shit.
We're back here 4 years later, but in a different country in Manchester.
Yeah, different country, different point in time. And I was I wanted that one a lot more than any others. And I was lucky that I was fit enough and, in a really good way physically, that I was able to get that done, but only by the skin of my teeth, that one.
So I'm curious to know, so you've won the gold medal, you've then broken the world record, that you've then won the Commonwealth Games, and as you mentioned, they're probably the only person that's held 3 within a 12-month period. At the start of this podcast, you talked about 10 years in the sport. at that stage, what else is there to achieve?
I think for me, like, this is the interesting piece, like, about perfection. Like, I think there's a lot more in it. Like, for me, I think there's a lot more in the two breaths. Like, the last 2 years, I haven't necessarily improved or had hiccups along the way that probably haven't helped me haven't allowed me to get the best out of myself. And when those opportunities come up, I've given my best, but it hasn't necessarily been reflective of what I believe is possible in the way I've trained. So for me, like, that's kind of why I'm still swimming and why I'm still chasing is that. And I think for me, then to hopefully, the goal is obviously LA. So to go to a third games, like, there's a few swimmers that have done it, and like a few swimmers now have been to 4, and Cam's looking like he'll go to 5, even 6. So for me, like, even just to have an impact on the sport, like, I don't know, a little anecdotal story is, like, in Paris, one of the last things I kind of said to myself in the marshalling, I like looked around and said, like, I'm the only one from the Tokyo final still in this final. Like, it was a brand new final apart from me, which, it was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Like,
yeah, that there's been so much turnover of trying to beat the world record and beat you from the last 4 years, that there's all these fresh and, different people.
Yeah. So that was for me, one of the last things I kind of said to myself, and was like a kind of like nice little way. It's kind of like, I don't know, if you followed the golf and heard Rory's interview at the end about the playoff hole, and like his caddy said to him, we would have killed for this on Monday, and just like completely snapped him out of those nerves and changed the mantra. And that was kind of the same thing for me. It kind of reframed it to be like, fuck, that's pretty cool. Like,
yeah,
let's just go enjoy this moment, because you're never going to get it back. Like, be in it.
And speaking of enjoying, when you're not thinking about swimming, if that's possible, what do you enjoy?
I mean, at the moment, like, I guess, like, being on the Gold Coast, like going to the beach and enjoying being outside lifestyle is definitely part of it. And I think then, like, socializing with friends and family when I can is definitely probably high on the agenda. When I'm not too tired, I love cooking, love photography, bit of film photography. Not recently, but have done a lot of film photography. And then coffee is definitely a little hobby as well.
Cooking. What do you cook? What's your signature dish?
Oh, well, until I moved into an apartment, I'd like smoked meats all the time. Yeah,
okay.
That was like, I loved doing all that. Like, short ribs was probably my favorite to do, like 12-hour cook on a short rib, like wake up maybe half an hour before training, make sure I cook, and then get back from training, and then
indulge, right?
Yeah, or tend to it for the rest
different
of the day.
Types of wetness, I suppose, when you go to the US. Yeah,
yeah.
The dry versus the wet, and the different types of barbecue. You're fascinated by the different styles of the US.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly part of it. I think deep down, I think anything that's got a really meticulous process, that's right up my alley. I guess like cooking, I guess I like probably the other side of it, like science behind it, and like understanding, I guess, the fundamentals so you can act creatively. I think that's the same in sport. The position I've gotten to is like, I understand the fundamentals and the basics well enough that then to create a framework and a plan to then have, it sounds strange, but like creativity within that. So for me, that's probably like why I like those other bits and pieces. Like film photography, for example, is another the reason I love that is because like you understand, like the framework of how film works and how the light and the chemicals all work, and then you're like, okay, now I can like push the limits or experiment with it. So I guess that's the reason I've loved. It's a process.
So speaking of photography, in these podcasts, I ask people about their scoreboard moment, which is like their Kodak moment, if you remember those days, or Minty's moment, where it's like a snapshot or a photo of some time or something which you remember in your life, which has probably impacted your life the most.
I think like probably it's one of like 3 distinct moments. Like the Olympics, I like distinctly remember, I guess, like during the games, Mac telling me like, remember as much as you can, because I was rooming with Mac Horton at the time. And like, I guess it's not like an achievement or anything like that. It's more, I guess I asked him, he's like, what do you wish someone had told you before Rio? And he said, remember as much as you can because it flies by. So, you know, me being like, the young person I was and like very obsessive at the time and still am, like, I then like purchased a little Fujifilm like printer, and then like every day I'd take photos, whether it was on my digital or phone, or someone else would take photos and get them off them, and then I'd literally print them out, stick them in a book, and like, I guess I'd then journal about that moment in time. And like for me it was really cool because it was like gave me a cool kind of, now it's like a book of
That's
memories.
awesome. Yeah. How good's that?
Yeah, like don't frequent it very often, to be fair. Like I've shown a few people and they're like, fucking hell. And then like the last few pages are like the beginning of quarantine, and then like kind of just goes like blank. It's like some of those moments I didn't necessarily like, the picture tells like 1,000 words. It's not like I couldn't put into words kind of the things that happened. So yeah.
And then and the follow-up question is your favourite sporting moment of all time?
Favorite sporting moment? It's probably like I was swimming at the time, but not comprehending kind of, and now I've only just like, you know, after being to Olympics, like comprehending what Phelps did to win 8 golds. Like I can't.
Even saying that now, it's like, what?
Yeah, like I can't comprehend winning 8 gold medals in one Olympics, and like, you know, somewhat being confident enough to say it pre-games, like, is insane. Like the pressure and the way he did that is like, yeah, like he didn't, to be fair, like he's come out and said like what Leon did is just as impressive because Phelps never won. So for people at home, like people listening, like Phelps didn't win 2 gold medals in a single night. It was all 1 gold medal each night. Yes, he had multiple semis into finals and those kind of bits, but he didn't win multiple golds on each night. And Leon won 2 gold individuals in one night. So
in his home crowd, which is like,
so like
unheard of, like timing wise of an athlete to be that good in their home crowd.
It's insane. So I think like, yeah, that's also like probably a scoreboard moment, just to be part of that moment and that energy on that night was like, oh, I'll never forget. Especially like the final, like walking out for the final, we couldn't hear the announcer, like it was that loud in the crowd. And I distinctly remember like warming up because he had his 200 butterfly earlier, and I was warming up kind of when he was racing, and like the whole stadium was like shaking. It was like, okay, I was like, that's cool. But then I was like, oh, I have to race in front of that. Like it's kind of this moment where you're like, okay, focus now. Like, and then like walking around the pool afterwards, because you kind of do like, it's not really shown on TV, but you walk around the pool after, so you get your medals and then you walk around the pool, and like that whole experience with anyone French, but Leon especially, like was insane. And then that same night, Pan broke the 100-meter world record. So it was a crazy night of swimming in general, and like, yeah, it was an awesome night.
Advice for young swimmers, the young Zac, who's 15.
Like, enjoy it. I think like I've been very lucky that I've enjoyed a lot of it. Obviously there's some shit moments and there's some crappy lows, but I think like I said it to someone yesterday, like it's not linear. The journey's not linear, and that's what makes it, as cliche as it sounds, that's what makes it like you don't appreciate the good moments without the lows, and vice versa. So, you know, understand it's not linear, understand that it's like it is a process, but enjoy that process and somewhat enjoy the mundane, but also when an opportunity presents itself, take it and run with it.
Zac Stubblety-Cook, thank you so much for being part of Scoreboard today and giving the listeners a bit of an insight into your life, your journey through the multiple different swimming events, as well as in the pool and outside of the pool, and looking forward to following your progress coming up this year and the path to LA.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.